Okay, I guess we should start. Okay, you're recording, right, Janine?
Yep, it's all ready.
Okay, great. I want to welcome everyone to the July meeting of WPE Community Board 4. First, I am going to read this very official letter to start our meeting. As per the mayor, the COVID-19 emergency order has not been extended. This committee meeting and all community board meetings will require an in-person forum to come to order and conduct business. MCB4 has adopted a hybrid meeting policy whereby we will meet in person in a virtual hybrid fashion. The MCB4 hybrid policy can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless you have a disability or an extraordinary circumstance as defined by the New York State Open Meetings Law. Excused committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Committee members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. We encourage members of the public to join virtually. Tonight's meeting is still being recorded and is currently live streaming on YouTube. Wow, I felt like I was a reporter there. I can never believe. But and I want to thank WPE because we actually do have a quorum to do official business. So if we do have a letter or any motions, we can vote on them tonight, and it will go to full board as it would normally when we were in virtual, which is good. I do want to start off a few things. One, we just came off, I know some of our members there virtually don't know, but we came off a beautiful tour of Jacob Javits' roof, their green roof. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about their solar panels and how big their green roof is. It's the biggest one in New York City, actually New York State, they said. And we learned a lot about their lettuce production and their bee pollination. And it was really and the seagulls and the baby seagulls. And for some of us, probably some are familiar, but for some of us, it was really a good treat, a really nice treat. And hopefully we can go back there one day. And the people who were not able to make it from our committee, we can definitely, I'm sure they will open their doors again and do another tour. I also would like to introduce our new members. We actually have one new member in person. Thank you. And go ahead. I'm gonna see, do we have Janine? I'm sorry if I'm leaning over because I'm working two computers here, but do we have, I think neither of our other two members are here, right? Just Raul, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa just walked in.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, Raul.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. So my name is Raul Arios. Today is my first meeting with WPE, and lucky me, I got to go to Jacob Javits. I hear from some people here that they've been waiting years to get this tour. Here I get to do it the first day of my meeting. So really pleased to be here. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, you just walked in.
Also, my first meeting, my first month on the community board, and my first meeting for the Parks Group environment. So excited to be here.
Welcome. And I do want to mention WPE's co-chair, Marty DeCat, is here virtually. Wait, Marty. Hey, Marty.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry I wasn't on the tour with you, and I hope you'll take a moment, some of you, to say what the most important thing you saw was.
I guess we could, what's the most important thing, guys, we thought we saw on the tour? Marty, we'll get back to you. Is that okay?
I think the solar canopy, it's
The people babies.
with the single babies, but also it's the largest solar roof canopy in the city.
Yeah, definitely.
In the city, yes.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear what they tried to do with their food that
Yeah.
they didn't need.
Yeah.
And they're planning on putting a windmill, bird-safe windmill on the roof.
Oh, the wind turbine. Yes, definitely. I mean, Marty, it was definitely, and for people watching, it was definitely right up our alley as far as environment. So it was a really nice tour. And Marty, we'll take you when you get back to the city. But oh, Brad's here. We have Janine. Brad is here also. I think you're welcome. I think we're gonna jump right into our first item on the agenda. I'm guessing everyone from Con Ed is here. Kimberly, hi Kim. And Marina, how you doing?
Good evening.
Great, so Marina, are you the one that will present today?
I'm gonna share my screen if you don't mind.
Oh, no, absolutely. You and Janine, I think, worked that out.
Yeah, that's fine. She can start. She can share it.
Great, thank you.
Is there some way to turn down the volume on that?
I'm afraid
It distorts the voices a little bit and you can't.
Yeah, you should be able to just on the laptop controls, and if you want, I can.
Yeah, you come over here because it's a pretty.
Is everybody seeing my screen or?
Yes, you could definitely, we're just gonna work on your volume real quick.
Let me just. Better?
Can you talk for one minute?
You guys can keep talking while we fix the volume.
I can actually go on mute. Can you guys hear us though?
Okay.
Yeah, we need you to talk.
Is this better?
Great.
For the room?
Is that good for the room?
Seems the same, but I think it's fine.
Okay. That's good. It's gonna happen.
Everything
Yeah.
set up in the room?
Yes, we got it. We see you on our projection. Thank you.
Great. All right, so thank you, and thank you to the WPE committee for having us visit once again. We really appreciate that you're granting us this time to speak. I'm Kimberly Williams. I'm joined by Marina Balber and several of our colleagues here at Con Edison to discuss our 59th Street Title V air permit renewal. Today, we're just going to go over several things. First, we will kind of introduce what the Title V air permit renewal is about, why we're doing this, go over the background, the permitting actions, the resources, and contact information in case anybody has additional questions about this permit renewal or needs to get in touch with us. So Marina, can you jump to slide 3?
Can I just ask before you go in? Will
Sure.
you share? Yes. Okay. So I don't have to write all that.
So we just went through kind of what the agenda will be. We'll kick it off. Frank Cuomo, our general manager from STEAM, will come and give us a little bit more about the background and start us off on the permitting actions. And Ben Tannen, who is a lawyer with our environmental law group, will provide more information about the permitting actions, and we'll close it out with just an opportunity to have comments and also make sure that everybody has our contact information. But I know that you guys already know how to reach us and get in contact with us. So the main reason why we are renewing this permit is because we need to maintain our current operations at the 59th Street steam station. And also we have provisions within our application to reduce NOx emissions. This conversation is part of our community outreach. So the renewal application is still being reviewed by the state. And when they finish reviewing also our public participation plan, we will have another meeting where we will, just do a little bit more of this, talk about what work we're doing, and also have an opportunity for comments. But today we also want to make sure that you have an opportunity to kind of get in early questions and comments and share just your thoughts about this action. So right now I'm going to kick it over to Frank, our general manager for STEAM operations, who will discuss a little bit more about the background and our work at 59th Street.
All right. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Am I coming in clear?
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Cuomo, and I'm the general manager here in STEAM operations with Con Edison. The STEAM operations team is responsible for the safe and reliable operation and maintenance of the 59th Street steam station, as well as the entire district steam system. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to provide a high-level overview of our operations at the 59th Street station. We'll start off, I always like to start with history because the system has such a rich history. The station was built and has been in operation since 1904. It is the only known landmark active power plant. Steam is produced at the facility and serves approximately 1,550 of the most iconic buildings in Manhattan. Our customers rely on steam service for heating, domestic hot water, and air conditioning, as well as other specialty uses like humidification and hospital sterilization. Our steam system is the largest in North America and 6th largest in the world. While the system serves approximately 500 million square feet of Manhattan real estate, some of the more notable West Side customers are the Penn Station, Penn District, Madison Square Garden, the new Moynihan Station, Manhattan West Complex, and the Fashion Institute of Technology. Javits Center is a little bit far west for us. We didn't extend the system that far, but there are some definitely notable West Side customers that rely on the system every day. If we go to the next slide. So I will now give you a simplified overview of the steam production process. If we start at a very high level, the 59th Street Station is one of 6 operating steam production facilities serving the Manhattan Steam Network. This station is one of our smaller stations, being approximately 12% of our overall capacity. Most of the hours of operation occur during the winter periods. However, the station also plays a critical function during the spring and fall when our other stations are shut down for pre or post winter repairs. While the station only operates 25 to 30% of the year, it provides a critical redundant capacity to ensure our customers have energy available 24/7, 365. While the overall process can be quite complex, it can be boiled down to some very basic and relatable elements. First, the process starts with plain old drinking water, the same water that comes out of your sink or shower. While the minerals in the water may be good for us to drink, our boiler equipment would prefer pure H2O. At this point, we start to filter the water to remove all of the natural minerals. This is similar to how you might filter water using a Brita type system. Once the water is filtered and at appropriate conditions, we can send it to our boiler where it is heated and converted into steam. This process is similar to a tea kettle you might have on your stovetop. After that, FDA quality steam enters a 105-mile distribution system and is used by our customers each day. If we go to the next slide. While the facility has the capability to produce 1.4 million pounds of steam an hour, it also has the capability to produce up to 20 megawatts of electricity for local neighborhoods during peak load electric events. This power is routed from the 59th Street Station down to the 49th Street substation, where it is routed through our electric distribution system. This specific substation is responsible for providing an astonishing 923 megawatts of power and also serves a number of critical networks and customers on the west side of Manhattan. While the gas turbine in 59th Street doesn't run often, its presence and capability affords the residents of this neighborhood additional electric reliability when it's needed the most. If we go to the next slide. We're here to talk about the permit renewal application, and it really incorporates 2 environmentally beneficial changes that we're proposing. I'll take them one at a time. The first change is associated with our planned backup fuel oil conversion. While our primary fuel is predominantly natural gas, we maintain a substantial quantity of fuel oil, which is only used during periods when the gas system is constrained. Our current backup fuel is number 4 oil. We are planning to convert to number 2 fuel oil to be in compliance with New York City local law, which mandates retirement of number 4 fuel oil. You can equate this to when you are selecting a grade of gasoline at the higher grades allow your engine to run clean. A conversion to number 2 fuel oil will have the same role for our engines. The second change is associated with our electric generator at the station. To comply with New York State regulations, we're planning to add a new water injection system on the natural gas powered turbine that produces the 20 megawatts of electricity as I described before. This water injection system will reduce the nitrogen oxide emissions for the unit and allow it to continue to operate and serve the electric needs of the neighborhood. The water injection system sounds pretty complicated, but it performs a very basic function. Nitrogen oxides need a high flame temperature to be created. The proposed water injection system injects water into the combustor of the unit and cools the equipment. This results in a lower flame temperature and, in turn, less nitrogen oxides produced during operation. The company views both of these projects as environmentally beneficial upgrades that will allow the continued operation of the 59th Street station and allow it to continue to serve the residents on the west side of Manhattan. I'd be happy to take any questions that if the group has, or we can turn it over to Ben and continue the presentation.
Well, why don't we do the presentation and then we can save our questions to the end? Would that be
That's
okay
great.
with you guys? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'll turn it over to Ben.
Thanks, Frank. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Tannen, and I'm an environmental lawyer at Con Edison. And I'm just going to provide a quick overview of the Title V air permit renewal process under the Clean Air Act. So the 59th Street Station has had a Clean Air Act Title V operating permit since the inception of the Title V program, which began several decades ago. The company submitted a renewal application for its existing Title V permit to the State Department of Environmental Conservation in October of 2018, which was before the expiration of the current permit. Under the State Administrative Procedure Act, the way that works is that the current Title V air permit remains in effect while the DEC reviews our renewal application. As part of the permit renewal process, there are going to be several other opportunities for public involvement, as Kimberly mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. First, we will hold a public meeting in keeping with the DEC's protocol outlined in DEC Commissioner Policy 29. That's the policy which Kimberly referenced, which mandates the public participation process. And then additionally, when the department actually issues the draft permit, there will be a 30-day public comment period during which the public can submit written comments on the draft permit. Next slide, please. With that, Kimberly, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Ben. So this slide just has some information on how you can reach out to us or other ways you can find out more information. We have a website, we have a repository on our website. It's at coned.com/home/community affairs/community updates 59th Street air quality permit. Easiest way to remember this, if you go to the Con Ed site and scroll to the bottom, you will see our community affairs page, and there will be a section there where you can get more information on our various community projects. You can also join our public meeting. We will share those details once we establish the date. It will also be posted on the above website. We'll make sure that Community Board 4 will have an invite for that. And you can also reach out to Marina at any time. We have a number 212-460-6427, or you can email Marina at balber, B-A-L-B-E-R, the letter M, @coned.com, and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. As mentioned previously, any notice of completed action or draft permit will be shared, and we will email our local partners, stakeholders, and we will post that on our website. So now we'd like to open it up for any comments.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kimberly and presenters. I'm gonna start with, you know what, I'll start with Marty, since you're virtual. I don't know if you have any questions or comments, but would you like to start us off?
I'd love to ask a question, may I?
Okay.
Would you explain to us how what you just said about the air renewal fits in with the city's requirements in local law 97 and others that have required large reductions in emissions for buildings all over the city?
Sure. Frank, would you like to take that, or would you like me to? I can take it if.
Yeah, why don't you start and I'll add on with the long range plan if we go into that.
Sure. So continued operation of the Con Edison steam system, affords building owners the opportunity to reduce their emissions by switching from, gas-fired boilers or oil-fired boilers in their actual buildings to, the Con Edison district steam system. And Local Law 97 actually recognizes the steam system as having the lowest carbon intensity of any heating option in the city. Frank, I don't know if you want to talk a little more about our decarbonization efforts.
Yeah,
Would
no,
you,
Ben,
would
that
you
was a
talk
great.
specifically, please, about not how you are, I know the steam would be beneficial to buildings throughout the city. That's an important part of the answer. But how does the emissions from your facility compare to the requirements?
So I can try to answer that, Marty. So the emissions from the 59th Street station get rolled into the overall emissions from all these stations combined, right? From all the steam plants, and they all get put together in a conglomerate, and that's what gets applied to customers for Local Law 97. If they're using steam, the coefficient that's in Local Law 97 is a combined factor of all the stations put together, and how often we operate each of those stations. For example, let's just say one station operated with higher emissions than another, but it doesn't operate that often. It doesn't produce a lot of emissions over time or over the year. So what we do is we aggregate the entire system, and the Local Law 97 coefficient, it reflects that aggregate of the entire system operating as one.
And that means that you are going to be or are already in compliance with those regulations.
So there's nothing to be in compliance with the regulations at this time as far as the steam system. Customers will need to be in compliance with their set caps that Local Law 97 requires. But as the steam provider, as the energy provider of electric, gas, and steam, the company is looking to continue to drive down those coefficients so the customers will receive those benefits of lower coefficients over time, and therefore be more and more in compliance as the systems become more green with renewable power and as the steam system continues to decarbonize. And we have a number of technologies that we're looking to install in the next bunch of years that will continue to improve the environmental performance of the system overall.
I'm appreciative that you're saying that the overall array of facilities will comply with Local Law 97. I'm curious about the unique emissions of even your set of 12 steam generators. Do they stand alone comply?
No. So that's a good question. The steam buildings, like the 59th Street station proper, does not have a Local Law 97 requirement. However, we do have a CLCPA requirement, which requires us to have 85% reduction of emissions based on 1990 levels. So, and that's by 2050. So we do have a requirement that is pushing us to reduce our emissions overall. It's not Local Law 97, it's a CLCPA. However, on behalf of our customers, we are also looking to decarb the system as quickly as possible to help them comply with their Local Law 97 factor or penalties. I hope that clarifies it, Marty. It's the same, but two separate regulations are trying to drive at the same goal.
I'm really a novice at this. Permit me to push once more, and then I'll back off. Are you saying that the collection of 12 steam facilities that produce their own emissions will have emissions levels that are comparable to what Local Law 97 requires? I know they're not required. You just said they're not required by local. You don't look at Local Law 97, but the requirements that you do have, how is it comparable?
So I just want to make a very simple clarification here. So the steam stations are exempt from local law 97 as far as we don't have emissions caps and we don't have penalties associated with them as, let's say, Penn Station or the Empire State Building or one of our customers would have, right? And there's a good reason for that. So if the local 97 gave the emissions penalty to the station and then gave the same penalty to a steam customer, you'd essentially be double counting both of those emissions, right? So what the regulation decided to do was the customers are assigned or assigned the caps for local law 97. The utility has to comply with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which is a CLCPA, and both of those regulations are driving emissions reductions, both at the production side at my facilities, but also at the customer side, which looks at energy efficiency, electric, gas, steam, any energy use in the building, local law 97 captures. So they're all driving at the same goal of reduced emissions for the city and the state, but one is strictly related to our customers and one is strictly related to the production. I've tried to simplify that as much as I can, Marty, and I'll go further if you want, but that's how the landscape is currently.
I should let other committee members ask questions, but would you talk one more second about what your anticipated reductions are over the next number of years, given the requirements that you face?
Sure. So the most strict requirements we have are actually local law 97, CLCPA for the production side. So by 2040, any electric production needs to be from renewable sources. And by 2050, my emissions for steam production need to be 85% reduced from 1990 levels. So those are the end goals that we need to achieve by 2040 and 50. We have a published long-range plan on our website and a clean energy commitment that talk about those plans, talk about those goals and the technologies we're going to use to achieve them. And right now we are working with the Public Service Commission and the state to secure funding and implement a number of demonstration projects on a variety of technologies that will help us start that journey towards those end goals.
Thank you for that answer. I think I would be, and maybe my colleagues would be, interested in periodic updates on how you achieve those goals.
We would be more than happy. The first couple demonstration projects that are installed, we would love to showcase them, and give tours when they're ready. And it's something that we're looking to stand up the next handful of projects over the next few years, Marty. So you'll see a lot more about this in our communications.
And we can definitely make sure you get like the base information that Frank referenced on the website and continue updating as these projects move forward.
Thank you, Marty. Frank, you actually answered my primary question, since it's not renewable or sustainable right now. What is the long-term plan for the renewal? And so we would love to be kind of in touch about that as you do the steps, because obviously that's everyone's long end game. I said one question before I go, just the air permit renewal. It's to incorporate environmental changes. I know the first one was moved from 4 to 2. What were the other environmental changes that were?
Yep, the second one was incorporating a water injection system into the electric generator at the 59th Street station, and that would reduce our NOx emissions.
Thank you. Is anyone in the committee? Roberta?
I was curious if you could talk about the impacts that this particular station has on air quality in the surrounding area, and what the changes that you plan on undertaking in this permit renewal or in the next couple of years, what impact that will have on air quality in the area surrounding the station.
Ben, is that one that you want to take?
Yeah, I was going to say, Frank, I can take that one. So
yep.
Title V operating permits typically have a term of 5 years. And so this renewal is sort of a standard process that occurs every 5 years. And then in this case, there are 2 changes to the facility that are associated with it. And those are the 2 changes. Frank mentioned, the switching of our backup fuel oil from number 4 to number 2, and then the installation of the water injection controls. Both of these changes are both environmentally beneficial changes and required by law. The first one, the fuel oil switch, is New York City law, and then the water injection controls is intended to meet state NOx or nitrogen oxide emissions limits. And so we would expect both changes to have a positive effect on air emissions. And by that, I mean reducing air emissions.
But there are no specifics. Just it's a trend that you're noticing.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I don't have specific numbers for you right now. We did, as part of the permit renewal process, conduct something at the request of the DEC, which is called air dispersion modeling, which looks at compliance with the federal air quality standard for nitrogen oxide emissions. And the air dispersion modeling concluded that the air quality in the region of the station will be in compliance with the federal standard.
Thank you.
Is it?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I have to say that I'm a bit troubled by what I've heard here. Now, mind you, I don't know much about steam or protecting the environment, but it seems to me like this is a missed opportunity to get ahead of the game. I mean, it sounds like you guys want to wait till 2050 to make the leap from fossil fuel generation or the use of fossil fuels to much cleaner renewable energy. And if you believe the media or some of the media, this plan is going to be dead by 2050. So why are you not taking this opportunity instead of going from fuel number 4 to number 2 to leapfrog from that to say solar now? Why wait so long? I mean, this is a 5-year permit. It's a missed opportunity, I believe, to start cleaning up your production now. So I'm wondering if that was even considered, and if it was, why was it eliminated as a possibility?
Sure, I appreciate the comment. What I'll say is I apologize if I miscommunicated. When I said 2050, Ben and I are not waiting till 2049 on New Year's Eve, and then we're going to cut the ribbon on everything we want to change, right? It's going to be a very long process to install the infrastructure and equipment that we need. And when I said 2050, that's the end goal, right? That is the absolute end of the requirements. So we have to be fully compliant by those dates, right? And it's going to take a while for us to get there, and we're going to have to build incrementally. The best analogy I've heard is we're flying a jet and we're changing the engine in flight, right? So we have to make sure that the system stays reliable, that folks still have their energy and their service while giving the stations a significant makeover and change out to more renewable options. To your comment on solar, 20 megawatts. So I mentioned the electric generator that is at the station is worth 20 megawatts. 20 megawatts of solar will require a significant amount of real estate and space, and is also intermittent, right? The sun has to be shining for it to be producing, whereas the 20 megawatt unit that we described earlier operates in the worst of the worst conditions when the electric system needs it the most and is on demand. So we just have to be careful not to mix apples and oranges on something like that. I will say there are a number of technologies that we are looking to demonstrate in the next few years and expand upon as we approach our clean energy future. And I'll just highlight a couple here for your information, and we can go further in if we want or at a future date. But industrial heat pumps is one of the largest ones we're looking at. It's essentially a heat pump that you would have for your apartment or for your home, but on an industrial size. And that has the ability to produce very, very hot water or even steam. and using renewable electricity to do so. So that is one that we are very excited about and looking to pilot and demonstrate quickly. There are also industrial size electric boilers, which require a little bit more electric input than the industrial heat pump. However, they do provide very significant, quick, on-demand production. We are also looking at and working with various parties in the state to look at low carbon fuels like renewable natural gas produced by our New York City sewer waste, as well as hydrogen, and using those in our facilities where the emissions would be drastically reduced. So I'm sorry if I gave the impression that we're kicking the can down the road. That is absolutely not the case. We are building towards that end goal of 2050, but having to move now. We have to start now to meet those goals because there's a significant amount of work to be done.
Does the Title V permitting require for you guys to disclose these potential new technologies, or you just leave that out completely?
I can jump in on that one. The Title V permit is an operating permit, right? So it essentially includes all of the air pollution control requirements under the Clean Air Act that the facility is currently required to meet. So it would not include a discussion of technologies we are considering in the future, but you know, those are discussed in a number of materials that the company has put out. And you know, Frank, I think you could probably talk a little bit about those. Yeah,
I can go a little bit more into that. So we have an annual fall seminar that we review our long range plans with our customers, and I think that's something maybe we'll make sure that's extended to the community board this coming fall. But it's a one time per year where we go over the long range plan with our customers and talk about all of our future plans and what's happening with decarbonization. But I'll also remind everyone in the meeting that you know, we are regulated, right, by the state, and every project that gets built has to get green lighted by the state, and the state has added requirements to make sure that our projects are moving the company towards decarbonization and the clean energy future. So, but we do have oversight. We have drivers that are making sure that our projects and investments in the future are moving us towards those end goals I mentioned earlier. So just to give everybody or the folks a couple of ideas of what is out there, you know, driving us, monitoring us, checking up on us, but also supporting us in this endeavor.
Thank you.
I appreciate the question.
I am new to this, so this might be a naive question, but are the new, I know that EPA standards are getting loosened by pushes from Congress. Are the New York State requirements more rigorous than what EPA has for emissions?
Yes, I mean, at a high level, they can be, and you know, the state CLCPA, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, you know, is one of the more stringent statutes in the country when it comes to regulation of greenhouse gas emissions in particular.
And so in a 5-year permit, does it relate to a specific emission number, or does it say you have to be in compliance with whatever that number is at that point in time? Like does it change over 5 years?
That's a good question. So taking a step back, the Title V permitting process basically regulates, you know, a number of pollutants under the Clean Air Act, particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, and some of the other ones we talked about. And so the permits can include emissions limitations in them, which are, you know, specific numeric standards that a permitted company needs to meet from a given facility.
But if the permit is the permitted number in year 1 of a permit automatically the same through year 5, or can it change over the course of 5 years?
Typically, it would be the same number, and it would be the number that is required by the state regulations.
I'm just sort of reflecting on the practical reality of what New Yorkers have been facing in terms of air quality index and their attention to such issues, that if it continues the way that it has, seems like that number would want to change.
Yeah,
Or
I
the-
will,
Question is-
I'll jump in on that. So if you look at the steam system, overall and our history, over the last 2 decades, the emissions from the steam system have come down significantly over time. And that's attributed to a number of equipment improvements, retirement of older assets and stations, conversion to 97% natural gas, right? From fuel oils that were used earlier in the decades, and different emissions controls and monitoring that have been put in place. So we are definitely no stranger to emissions improvements, and we live and work and play in the city as well. So air quality affects our employees and our company as well. But I will say we've made great strides over time, and if you look at the company's long-range plan and our clean energy commitment, the trajectory is to continue to improve significantly over the next 10 to 20 years. So, that's the trajectory that we're on. Even though the Title V permit is an operating permit and stays level for 5 years, the company overall is on a trajectory for significant improvement.
Thank you. Brad?
Ben, we're the environmental committee, and you're here for a permit for the next 5 years, and we asked specifically for that steam plant, what is the emissions on it? And we are getting told it's mixed in with everything else. It's tough for me to understand why we can't get that information.
So
Brian?
you're looking for the exact emissions for the 59th Street station? Is that what is being requested?
That chart, it shows the community, it shows, like you said, the nitrogen, you guys did a study for the permit. What's the emissions on the actual steam plant? 5 years ago it was this, 10 years ago it was this. We projected with the changes in the reserve oil and the number 2 thing for the flame in the water, it's gonna be reduced. We did not even get any numbers, general, it's just general. I'm just curious, I mean, you're going for, has a permit ever been denied?
We can certainly get back to you with specific numbers. We have annual reporting requirements to the state, Department of Environmental Conservation. So those numbers are readily available, and we can.
So like any building that comes in front of us, they have the chart. They say, here's what the emissions are. Here you are, a power plant, and we have no data, 0. My next question is, you guys can make money on the distribution, on the selling of the power, but you make your money on the distribution of it. Is any of these things that you're doing going to reduce the cost for the customer?
So the main premise or the main goal of this is for enhanced electric reliability, right? So that water injection system ensures that 20 megawatt unit can run and stay in compliance with the New York State rules, and having that 20 megawatts at that location to serve that neighborhood and that substation, it's a critical piece of infrastructure that we are maintaining and keeping online. Whether that results in a reduced cost to customers, it depends how you look at it. If we have an electric outage in the area and the electric operations team has to spend money to get that equipment back up and running and repair it, then yes, it has saved money. But is it an investment in the system? Yes, it is. And we're spending money to invest in the system to ensure that first piece doesn't happen. So can I say that it's a dollar discount here or there, or it's just an investment in the system that we're investing on behalf of customers to ensure reliability.
So the cost of this change is going to be added to the bill.
And I'll be very clear, and the customer bills, it's not just the company doesn't have the right authority or power to invest something and pass those costs on to customers without approval from the state. Like I mentioned before, any new program or project or anything that happens and affects customer rates has to be approved by the state. So this is not something that's done in isolation.
No, I understand that, Ben. I'm just trying to, the cost of this, which is great, it's gonna be passed on to us. I understand the regulation, but next time we like some data. That's all. We like steam, we just want some data.
Understood. We do, as Ben mentioned before, we do report out on the data, and that's something that we can share. I believe Kimberly said earlier that we need to come back and do this a second time. And we can take a look at that and make sure that we have that to share. But I also want to note, I mentioned earlier, so the conversion from number 4 to number 2, we only operate 3% of the year on backup oil, and that's only during the worst times when the gas system is constrained. So the environmental benefit of that, it's notable, right? Because number 2 is better than number 4. But again, we don't burn that much oil just in general, right? So I just want to lay that out there. So there is an environmental benefit. And if we have more oil that needs to be used, the benefit will be larger. And then if for the generator, the water injection will really help. And we run it when it's on call. So if it runs more, the benefit will be larger. If it runs less, the benefit will be a little bit less. But both of them are a step in the direction of when they're needed and they've run, it will be better for the neighborhood and better for the customers and better for the environment. But we can give you some rough estimates.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else? Oh, okay. Roberta and then Candace.
Is there a public comment or review process / are you asking the community board to write or support or endorse?
I was gonna get to that if they want a letter. If you wait on that, the letter part, is that okay? Is there something else or?
No, just kind of curious, if there's a public engagement process around this, would be curious what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah, and I can take that one, Frank. So this is part of our outreach that is part of the Title V renewal process. I mean, the way the process works is that we submitted the renewal application, which I mentioned. Then typically there's a back and forth with the state. The state might ask specific questions or request additional information from us. At the end of that process, and part of that process is going to include the development of the public participation plan, which Kimberly mentioned in another public meeting. The state will issue a draft permit. The draft permit is going to go out for public notice for a 30-day period. So that's going to be another opportunity for the public to weigh in via written comment. And then depending on the scope of the public comments that the DEC receives during that process, they could choose to hold a public hearing, which would be another opportunity for public engagement. At the end of that, the draft permit will go to the federal EPA actually for a review period. And finally, at the end of that entire process, there'll be a final permit. So there are several additional stages beyond this one where the public will have the opportunity to comment. And of course, we welcome engagement during all of that.
Candace, and then I see Marty has his hand up. Just a gentle reminder, we have 4 other agenda items tonight, just FYI.
So my question is, thank you for the presentation, but my question is, on the CLCPA, it says on 2030 that you should be at 40% of your emission goals. Where are you right now?
So for CLCPA, based on 1990 levels, we're about 60% reduced from those, from that level. And a lot of that is based on fuel changes over time. And as I mentioned, retirement of older assets, conversion of fuel oil to natural gas at all of our stations. So we're at about 60% now. And we're planning to continue to progress down from the 60% to the required 15 over the next bunch of years. And in fact, we're trying to close out a case with the state to get funding to incorporate some of these demonstrations.
Thank you.
Good candidates. Good. Marty, and also, Janine, is there anyone from the public? I can't, that has their hand up or no?
No, just Marty.
Okay, Marty, go ahead.
I don't know what you mean by just Marty, but never mind.
That's the Marty.
I have two comments, if I may. I appreciate your presentation. Thank you. We are not our committee is not a data gathering committee. That's not our goal. But I think Brad is completely correct that a presentation like yours, we should begin to require or to request data over time. What Frank just talked about being at 60%, if I hit the number correctly, of the 1990 levels is itself an interesting piece of information, because that means that you don't have 85% to go, which is what I sort of heard in the earlier presentation. So what the first comment is, if we could have the data presented, I know that you can present data in a very complex way, and that I would never understand it. I would like to see particulate matter, NOx, and several of the others shown over time what the levels have been, and that would give us an idea of your progress. And actually, it's probably a good thing for you to be doing for the community anyway. So as part of your presentations, I hope you will say, over the last number of years, we've improved NOx by such and so, and these new installations will result in further reduction. And then in your future presentations, we would see those reductions in your continued presentation of data. Comment number one. Comment number two, you said you're going to put in the gas from 4 to 2 and the water injection. When is that going to be completed?
Oil.
Yeah, so we are looking to complete that really as soon as possible. Obviously we would need the approval, but the oil conversion, as per the rules, have to happen by the end of next year. So that's something that is required by the city. And I believe the water injection, Ben, keep me honest on here, I believe that also has to happen by 2025.
Yeah, that's correct. May 2025.
Yeah. So we have some end dates there, Marty, on these, and we're not looking to wait to those end dates. We want to get the projects up and running, and for the fuel oil conversion, it's not just taking a fuel out, taking a fuel in, and you're done. There's other things associated with that, like fire protection systems, controls, and alarming. So it's not a one-for-one change out. So we want to get going on these as soon as we can, to make sure that one, we hit the compliance dates, but two, that we get the benefits of their installation sooner than later.
And you'll let us know when that happens.
Yeah, we can do that, and yeah, no, we can do that.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you for having us.
Kimberly, are you looking for a letter? Do you need a letter from us? Are you looking for a letter from us? What are you looking for?
So we will come back and we will have another presentation. It is open to comment. You are welcome to submit a comment, either directly, you can write directly to Marina, or you can send it to the DEC. It's not a requirement, but we do love to hear from the community board, and we've valued your letters in the past, Leslie. So. Okay,
got you. I think, and guys, just to summarize, the few things we are interested in, as Brad said, we definitely would like specific information on this particular steam station. I don't know if we could talk about if we're going to do a letter or not. I don't know if that requires a letter. That's just information we would like. And as a few of us have said, as you know, we always want to get to renewable energy. So we are interested in that long-term plan, very much so. So the fall update, I think you can put in your calendar, because I think that's kind of what we are here all interested sooner rather than later. And we understand it's turning around a big steamship. It's not like flicking on a switch and all of a sudden we have, solar and wind and electric, but that would be appreciated. But thank you, Kimberly. I'm gonna go to the committee and see if, there is a letter out of this, or do we just request those, that we wanted that maybe were not sufficiently?
Do we have a date? The date for?
Yeah, what's the end date period, really?
So we don't
Submission.
have that date yet. The state has to formally approve, accept our application. And then they will give us a date by which we will have the meeting, and that will kick off the rounds of public comments. So we're happy to accept any information now, but if you want the formal process, we can give you a kind of heads up to say, please formally submit a comment at this point. We would love, and if we're allowed to, we would love to have our official meeting also with this body, because we have an engaged group of people available. If we cannot do that, we will make sure that it doesn't conflict with your standing meeting so that anybody who wants to attend can attend.
Okay, so even though we don't know, we're talking end of summer or like 2 weeks from, it's gonna be a while, I'm guessing, right, or no?
Probably, my guess would be August, mid-August to September. So before the official end of summer, the calendar end of summer is my guess. And we also, would love, outside of this process, we are more than willing to continue offering information around this. I do believe we extended in the past, but we'll definitely extend again an opportunity for you guys to also come out to the 59th Street steam plant to see our work in action. I would recommend not doing that in the summer. That's a personal recommendation if you just want to think about steam in the summer, but that's also standing, and we're ready and willing to have you at any time.
And we could couple that. We can couple that with an overview of the decarbonization plan. We can have kind of a session on that, then walk the station. If the group is interested, I'd be happy to facilitate that.
That would be great, actually.
Yes, may I ask one quick question of
Yeah.
Frank? Frank, the conversion from 4 to 2, you said you're gonna be buying new equipment and doing some upgrades. What is the investment that we're talking about here, and that new equipment, what is it expected life, depreciation life?
So I will tell you, we depreciate our assets. I believe, don't quote me on this, I think it's a 20-25 year depreciation over time. We usually run them significantly longer than that. Some of the stations have been in operation for quite a long time, and we do a good job of maintaining the equipment so it can continue to run. I don't know the overall cost off the top of my head, but it's in the tens of millions. It's a significant investment, right, on the steam system. And it's not just a 59, just to be clear, it's not just a 59th Street station that needs to do this. It's all of our stations that have number 4 backup fuel. We will have to convert to number 2 as per the requirements of the city. So that's something that is going to be on the way soon and needs to happen by the end of next year.
Thank you.
Great. Marty, why don't you go ahead? Would you expect, I think we can write a short letter. What do you think? Just going over the points that we discussed here and kind of what we're, Kimberly, we might also inject what we're overall requesting down the line, like an overarching as well to include in the letter. Not just specifically just from the permit points. Marty, what do you think?
It might form the basis of the letter we have to write later in the fall. So it's not wasted time. It's a good idea, I'm saying.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, okay, definitely. Does anyone have any points that they want included in the letter other than what we kind of discussed amongst ourselves today, or?
I think, everything you said, I think is appropriate. I don't have anyone.
I know it's only, the permit really only covers 2 points, 2 very specific points, but we can our overarching concerns,
Yeah.
we can definitely include in the letter. And I
Should,
think,
should we mention them now or later or?
yeah, we can mention, yeah, I mean, we can mention the air quality, we can mention what Brad said, the specific numbers to that specific plant. Their forward overarching goal that they talked about, the long term, which obviously we would want quicker. That we want that, and then we are gonna specifically talk to the 2 points, which is 4 to 2. Which it is what it is, I guess, right now, and we can talk to that. And the water injection control, those are the 2 specific points for this permit. So,
So I'm a new member, so I don't know if I'd be overstepping my bounds, and please tell me if I am.
not at all.
But I am certainly troubled by the fact that they're going to invest tens of millions of dollars in equipment to convert from 4 to 2 with a life of 25 years. That to me tells me that they're gonna stay on number 2 for 25 years. But we really need to accelerate and move fast to clean renewable energy, so I'm very troubled by that.
It's kind of like what buildings do, right? They go, which is unfortunate, they go from, the 6 to the 4 to the 2, instead of going right from 2 to go electric. Exactly. And obviously, as the environment committee, we would love to see in many facets, but we can include that in the letter as well, because I think that's valid. Because once they switch, they're gonna run it out, right? Any other points? Brad, do you have a point?
Just one thing that's sticking at me, I think, I don't have his name up there, it was Frank and
Benjamin?
Ben said, we care because we actually work there. I'm just curious, are any people that work at that plant live in the district? Because we asked a lot of these things, and any of these jobs are in the district. And just because we talked about a tour, I'm curious, do they bring schools there and walk through a tour and say, hey, this is what we're doing?
Yeah, well, I'll answer as I don't know the living conditions of all 600 steam operations employees, but we do have folks that live in city. We have folks that live in buildings that are steam customers. We have folks that live adjacent to the steam plants. We live outside of that area. We do host numerous tours at 59th Street, East River, and 74th Street for schools, public interest groups, as well as just folks like yourselves that are interested in learning more. So we are very active with that, and that's something that we plan to continue in the future.
Thank you, Frank. And I think we are going to take you up on the tour maybe in September, October. But let's take a vote.
It's not as bad as Kimberly said, but it is warm. September would be better.
I would think it would be warm anytime, but let's take a vote on the points that we just mentioned in the letter. Actually, someone has to make a motion. If someone could make a motion for the letter, that would Roberta, anyone second? Great. All in favor? All opposed to the letter? Present not eligible? Abstentions? One abstention. Janine, just so you know, in the room, all in favor except Raul is abstention for a letter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure you saw the Zoom, right? I think Christopher's on the Zoom and also Marty.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Con Ed. Kimberly, it's always great to see you.
No, thank you so much for having us. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marina. So now our second agenda item is just to give you a little bit of a background. The Birds and the Bees Act. We like our bees, but this is something that Brad Holman's office and Brad was working on. And this is to eliminate or ban really a certain pesticide that is I guess, and I think Natalie was here.
Yeah, she's on.
Oh, there she is. Natalie, there you are. You can correct me if I'm wrong. There's a certain pesticide that covers seeds. that farmers use, and I think it passed, right, Natalie?
Dan is the expert here, so we'll let him jump in.
Yeah, it did pass, and I have a short PowerPoint presentation. I don't want to crowd the agenda here. It takes about 10 minutes, but if that is too much.
No, we're glad, we're glad you're here, because we know we want to support some of these efforts, especially by our own representatives, and when it deals in the environmental realm. So this is important to us. So Dan, go ahead, take it away. I think Janine has your. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, too. I was just going to say, I'm just flagging that, yeah, this bill was also co-sponsored by Deb Berglick in the Assembly. And I do see Roy, I think maybe from Assembly Berglick's office is here. So I don't know if he's here for this topic, but just wanted to shout that out.
Thanks, Natalie. I'll bring him over.
Yeah, very, very big shout outs to both Assemblymember Glick and Senator Hoylman Siegel. This is an incredibly important piece of legislation, a nationally leading piece of legislation. The bill passed in just a couple of, last month. And we're certainly hoping that Governor Hochul will sign the bill and would love the support of the community board in to that effect. But to understand why this bill is so important, you have to understand something about neonicotinoid pesticides, or neonics for short. So I'll just jump into things here and try and get through this quickly. But neonics are toxic insecticides, which means they are pesticides designed to kill bugs by attacking their nerves. And we first became very concerned about neonics in the mid-2000s when beekeepers in New York and across the country saw their annual losses of honeybee colonies sort of shoot through the roof, going from about 10–15% a year, jumping to 30, 40, 50% a year. And they've maintained that level since that time, right? So we're still seeing these losses, huge losses year over year. Now for honeybees, they're essentially livestock, right? They're actually not even native to the US, and they're bred and replaced every year because there's an economic reason to do that. The same is not true about our native and wild bees. And a recent state survey shows that somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 60% of New York's native pollinators, and that's actually even beyond the 400 species of state bees, are at risk of disappearing from the state altogether, or extirpation or local extinction. And as it turns out, those native bees are actually pretty important pollinators too. They're certainly essential to the functioning of ecosystems, right? If we continue to lose pollinators, we'll start to see ecosystem collapse. But they're also hugely important to a number of top crops in New York, including apples, blueberries, and cherries that we know from research are now limited, right? Farmers are growing fewer apples and blueberries, cherries, other fruits, vegetables, etc., because we just don't have enough pollinators. So, why the concern with neonics, right? There are a lot of things impacting bees. There is climate change, habitat loss, parasites, pathogens, other pesticides. Why neonics? And there are three big reasons. The first is that neonics are super duper toxic to insects. And to give you a sense of scale here, one neonic treated corn seed, and I'll explain what that is in a bit, has enough active ingredient to kill 250,000 bees. And in fact, neonics have made US agriculture about 50 times more harmful to insect life since their introduction. And we see that spike in harmfulness almost exactly at the time that we see this sudden spike in losses of bees. And that's why we're so concerned about neonics, right? Climate change, again, definitely an issue. Parasites, pathogens, habitat loss, but there's nothing that maps that sudden spike in losses like the sudden spike we see in use of neonics, particularly on those treated seeds. And I'll explain that right now. So the second problem with neonics is that they are very good at contaminating whole ecosystems. So they're designed to permeate plants, to get into the leaves, the roots, the nectar, etc. Basically to make the plant itself the pesticide, to make the plant itself toxic to insects, which means they can be applied in all sorts of interesting ways. They can be sprayed, and certainly they are, but they're more commonly applied to soil or literally painted on crop seeds. And here's a picture of some neonic treated corn seed. They colorize it to let you know there's a pesticide on the seed. And the idea is that as that seed is growing into a plant, it literally soaks up the pesticide through its roots and becomes toxic. The problem being only 2 to 5% make it into the target plant. The other 95+% stays in the soil where they persist for years and years. And those same properties that let them get into the plant also means they're very mobile in the environment. So anytime it rains, anytime there's irrigation, lawn watering, those neonics are moving through the soil, contaminating new soil. Our plants in that soil, guess what? They soak up the pesticides, their pollen, their nectar becomes toxic. If there's a water supply nearby, that water supply becomes polluted. Third problem with neonics is that they are all over the place. They coat the seeds of over 1 million acres of corn and soybean in New York, but off the farm, they are all over lawns, gardens, golf courses, you name it. And actually the rates per acre are much higher on those non-ag uses. So we actually see sort of toxic hotspots for these pesticides in urban and suburban areas. Neonic use in New York has gone up and up and up over the years. And this is just the ag use of neonics. It's not counting the lawn and garden stuff, but I'll bring your attention to that little red square. That's the use of just one neonic imidacloprid. And here's how the use of imidacloprid has grown in agriculture over the years. Now, if you'll notice, there's some white areas of New York that would be filled in if we were looking again at the lawn and garden uses. So Long Island, Westchester, et cetera, that would all be filled in if we were looking at those lawn and garden uses. But just the ag picture of just one neonic chemical, right? Not even the most used in New York, gives you a sense that these pesticides are now used all over the place. And they're used in the same areas year after year after year, meaning that there is a buildup of toxicity in the soil in those areas that is constantly expanding every time it rains. So, we see this contamination in New York water. Neonics appear all over New York surface waters. They're in 1/3 of Long Island groundwater samples in state and federal testing there. They are the most detected insecticides in the Long Island aquifer. And again, we're just talking mostly about imidacloprid alone. Most of the state testing is not for these other 4 chemicals. So as bad as it looks, it's likely a drastic underestimate of what the real water quality contamination issue is. And I should note, importantly, for New York City, conventional chlorination treatment does not remove neonics from water supplies. So where neonics get into a water supply, only advanced filtration removes them. And New York City, as well as Syracuse, famously have unfiltered water supplies. So, what's the total effect of this sort of ubiquitous contamination, soil, water, plant life that's building up year over year? Certainly, we know that neonics are responsible for the decline of pollinators, but they were sort of the canaries in the coal mine. We also see neonics being linked to mass losses of birds. And one way they do that is basically hollow out of all the insects that the birds eat. And as it turns out, most birds eat insects. So fewer bugs, fewer birds. Same thing with fish. Neonics are very toxic to aquatic invertebrates. This is a study of a Japanese fishery that collapsed after the introduction of neonics in nearby agriculture. And we see similar levels all over New York water. Neonics are also directly toxic to things with spines like birds. Just one neonic treated corn seed has enough active ingredient to kill a small songbird if ingested. And birds definitely do eat these seeds. Even at levels that don't kill birds, they interfere with their neurological systems, their ability to migrate, their immune systems, their ability to reproduce, all sorts of things. And where, it gets a little scarier is some of the mammalian testing, particularly on large mammals like deer. We see neonics associated, particularly exposures in the womb, with some very scary health outcomes, including birth defects, sort of visible birth defects of the jaw in this particular study. Similar deal with organ sizes and weights, and also increased rates of mortality for fawns, which is a really scary outcome. We see in the human testing, and we don't have controlled tests, right? Because you can't give people pesticides and see what happens. But we do know from testing of exposed populations that we see very similar effects. So we see links between neonic exposure and birth defects, higher rates of birth defects of the heart and brain, autism-like symptoms, reduced cognitive abilities, and then in adults, a whole host of both neurological as well as hormonal issues associated with neonic exposure. And how common is neonic exposure? I would guess that most, if not all of the people on this call have neonics in their body, at least in some form or another. At least that's what the testing leads us to believe. CDC did some testing in 2016 that found neonics in about half the American population, and that's tests of thousands of people nationwide. Some more recent testing in New York and 4 other states of pregnant women found that over 95% of those participants had neonics in their body, with higher rates in Hispanic women. And this is the scary part. Those results showed that neonic levels were increasing year over year from 2017 to 2020, which is also consistent actually with what we're seeing in the wild. There was a similar study finding similar spikes in neonic levels in wild deer. And similar, the worry here is similar to lead and mercury. Neonics are neurotoxic. They affect receptor sites in sensitive areas of our brain and central nervous system. So there may be no safe level when it comes to childhood neurological development. We also know that these impacts are disproportionate. Again, the studies show that we're seeing higher rates of these pesticides in Hispanic women, and also just in terms of who can avoid these pesticides in their daily life. If you eat all organic produce and you buy a filter for your water system, you can reduce your risk of exposure to neonics, but not every family can do that. And of course, again, the water contamination concerns are more pronounced in water systems that don't filter their water, like New York, like Syracuse, although most don't use advanced filtration. And certainly, we see food costs rising. That's a big concern these days. The lack of pollinators is only contributing to that, and also hitting the families that can least afford most. So the act itself is an incredibly fantastic bill. It comes from it's sort of born out of a massive report from Cornell University that looked at over 1,100 peer-reviewed papers, basically everything that had been written on neonics and pollinators at that time. And importantly, it did a cost-benefit analysis, because with pesticides, what you have to ask is, if you get rid of one pesticide, what replaces it? And 2 big conclusions from that report. The neonic-treated corn, soybean, and wheat seeds, which is by far and away the largest and most widespread use of neonics in New York, provide no overall net income benefits to farmers, right? So, and to break that down a little bit more, very rarely are they providing any sort of yield benefit, but even when they do, if you look at the extra cost of the pesticide on the seed, economically it's a wash. So those are sort of the biggest and least justifiable use. But as it turns out, the turf and ornamental uses, again, these are the ones that create those toxic hotspots. Also, most of the time not needed, sort of treating problems that don't exist, like taking an antibiotic now, just in case you might get sick in October. Most of the time not needed. And even when you would want to use an insecticide, a number of safer, effective alternatives, more effective actually, are available. So the bill just bans those 2 categories of uses. It's relatively surgical, but it gets at about 80 to 90% of all the neonics that are going into New York's environment year over year. So again, very surgical bill based on Cornell science, but gets at the heart of the problem. There are exemptions for treatments of invasive species and other safety valves in the bill, but overall, again, it would achieve some pretty substantial reductions and be a nationally leading bill in the United States. So what happened with the bill? The legislature passed it. Really great news, and we really thank Senator Hoylman-Siegel for his tremendous work on the bill, as well as Assemblymember Glick. They really went to bat for the bill. There was some pretty fierce opposition from the chemical industry, and they overcame it. But we know that pressure is now focusing on Governor Hochul. We know that the chemical industry is very much trying to get the governor to veto the bill and doing everything they can, pulling out all the stops. They very much hate this bill. So we're going to need as much people power as we can to overcome that industry pressure. And that is where, you know, a letter from the community board would be very helpful. Right now, the governor is sort of weighing, you know, the various voices that are entering in this fight, and the more voices, the better. And again, you know, a letter from the community board would be just incredibly helpful. So with that, I'll stop sharing and take any questions.
Dan, thank you so much. That was great. Letting us know what's going on. I have some questions, but I'm going to defer first to the committee. If anyone has any questions. Roberta?
I was curious, just because it said that there were links, but how substantial is the literature linking neonics to human-specific effects that were listed there? Is that a couple of studies, a single study, or is there a body of literature that substantiates that thing?
So there are a couple of different bodies of information on that. So in the academic literature, I want to say there are somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe like a dozen studies, and there's different types, right? There's studies that look at that exposed populations and sort of factor for different confounding things. I think of those studies, there's maybe like half a dozen of those. And then there are other studies based on the CDC testing, because the CDC monitoring looked for a whole bunch of different levels. So they're like, well, you know, what are elevated neonic levels associated with? And they found that they were associated with lower levels of testosterone in men, and sort of also weird things going on with insulin and fat regulation. So I would say in total, there's about a dozen of those studies. But in addition to that, we have data from EPA that collects poisoning reports. And actually, there's more fatalities than you would expect with neonic products, including some of these garden products. And those symptoms are the same that you would expect out of a neurotoxic agent. Beyond all of that, like data on people, we have a set of data in animals, again, from the deer study, but also all sorts of studies on rats, both in the EPA literature and in independent literature, that looks at those impacts, and they line up very well with the impacts that we see in people. So if you talk to somebody like a toxicologist, they're going to say, well, you know, these fit a similar pattern, right? We know these agents are neurotoxic. We know what receptor sites they work in our bodies. Actually, neonicotinoid means new nicotine-like substance. It works on the same receptor sites that we have that receive nicotine, except with nicotine, it sort of hits the receptor site and then leaves. The way neonics work is they attach to that receptor site and just don't let go, right? And continue to stimulate the nerve. So right, it sort of fits a pattern that we expect. I couldn't tell you that we have the same amount of data on neonics that we have on other neurotoxins like lead, or even other pesticides like chlorpyrifos, which you might have heard of, because neonics are newer. But again, the pattern that we're seeing emerge is not a heartening one.
Dan, thank you. Certainly an eye-opening presentation. I had never heard of neonics, and I'm greatly troubled by it. I'm just wondering, what justification does the chemical why is it that farmers even buy this pesticide? What's the benefit to them? Doesn't seem to be any. So why does this product even exist? What demand is it out there for it?
Well, I mean, what the chemical industries will tell you is that their products are effective, and that they're beneficial for growing crops. And in particular, again, the bill is just about corn and soybean seeds, right? It doesn't touch, these pesticides are used across the board in terms of agricultural production. They are the most widely used insecticides in the US and the world. But their largest uses, again, these corn and soybean seeds, it's oftentimes the chemical companies that are giving farmers the advice in terms of the efficacy of these products. There is great consolidation between the people that are making the seeds and the people that are making the chemicals. Actually, they're all the same people, right? I don't know if you've heard recently that in the last several years, a lot of these companies have consolidated. If you've heard of Monsanto, that was bought by Bayer. Bayer are the folks that originally made the neonics, and of course, Monsanto makes the genetically engineered seeds. And in a lot of cases, particularly with corn in the US, if a farmer wants to buy a seed with those genetics, and they do, you have to buy that seed with a neonic on it. So in a lot of cases, there's bad advice coming from people that have a financial interest in giving that advice, right? So they can sell the product. In a lot of cases, there's no choice. And so, oftentimes you have a situation where a farmer may be buying a seed with 2 or 3 different types of genes on it, and 3 to 4 different types of pesticides, and they just buy the meal deal, right? And this is part of the meal deal. And the idea is, with this bill, we need to strip neonics out of the meal deal, which I should note has been done in Europe and has effectively been done in Canada. So this wouldn't be the first worldwide, but this would be a nationally leading bill in the US. The US tends to trail a little bit on pesticides.
Dan, that was what I was going to ask you. This has been places in Europe, correct? Already, can you just give us where it's already been?
Yeah, so on the seeds in particular, so Europe enacted a total outdoor ban on the three most used neonics, and then France kicked in the other 2. But it's only those 3 that are used on seeds. So actually Europe banned neonics on corn and soybean seeds in 2013. Canada imposed restrictions that have basically led to the market itself phasing out neonic use. So they're basically not used in Quebec anymore. We don't have great numbers for Ontario, but from what I've read and anecdotally, they've been basically phased out there too for about the last 5 years. And, we haven't seen effects on corn and soybean yields over the border or in Europe. So this, again, it wouldn't be precedent setting worldwide, but it would be a big step in the US.
You are very close. Obviously, if it passed the Assembly and it passed the Senate, we're pretty much at the finish line with this one. It's just, so I was reading where I was talking with the office, Natalie, with your office, I think a few weeks ago about this. And is Governor Hochul, from what I understand, is the farmers lobby, is that the one that's going to be the big hurdle?
So, I think there is, there's different voices in the farming community. So, various arms of the Young Farmers Coalition and NOFA New York, the Organic Farming Association, have been in support of this bill and our voices in favor of it. And I would think any farmer who's like an apple farmer or any farmer that relies on pollinators, I would assume would be in favor because, maybe their neighbor, the corn farmer or the soybean farmer or the golf course may not be benefiting from the use of these insecticides. But certainly, we know that production levels are down because of a lack of pollinators. But the bill was opposed by the Farm Bureau and I think corn and soybean growers as well. So there are definitely some ag voices in opposition as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, we are talking about the same Monsanto that gave us the carcinogenic weed killer Roundup, right?
Roundup and PCBs and all sorts of things. Yeah.
Hopefully this bill will be enacted, but pending that, is there any kind of home water filter that could remove these elements from drinking water?
So granular active carbon filtration does remove neonics from water. So if you have a GAC filter, that will be effective.
Thank you.
In places where the that have banned neonics, have there been any impacts on food prices? I know that is certainly a concern for members of the community.
Yeah, I mean, again, the nature of this bill is so surgical, right? We're not talking about pesticide use on any fruit and vegetable production. And to give you a sense of how narrow it is, even other neonic uses on corn and soybean, right? It's just really the seed treatments that are affected. And I have not seen any analysis that points to the prohibition of neonics, well, in any respect, but certainly on corn and soybean seeds, that has affected prices at all. And certainly it has not affected yields per acre. I mean, there's a number of factors that cause yields per acre to sort of bounce up and down in any given year. But if you look at corn production, soybean production in Europe or in Canada, you know, you're seeing those levels basically flat or up over time.
Dan, has there been any consideration in the future to add an amendment to the bill that states that any state parkland or city parks, public areas? Because I know you said you're very surgical. I'm just wondering, could it expand to state-owned entities and they cannot use these seeds for grass or anything like that?
Well, it would actually include all of that, right? So we talked about the seeds a lot, but the other part of the bill, which is very critical, again, for urban and suburban areas, and I think for water quality, right? We actually see these water quality spikes more so in urban and suburban areas. The bill also prohibits those non-agricultural lawn and garden uses, and that would be in a state park. That would be in a backyard or a golf course. So it's actually more expansive than that. The exception would be for invasive species treatment of woody plants, but that is much more contained. They actually, oftentimes they inject the tree or they put the application at the roots. Very different than a lawn where you're just taking a bunch of neonic granules and you're spreading them out over a huge area and then watering them in. So yeah, it would cover those public parks as well as private lands.
I see Paul from Parks. I think, are we done with committee questions and we can go to public? Great. Paul?
Yeah, I was just had I hate to say it, a nerdy agricultural question. You mentioned that these are mostly insecticides. Are they also fungicides as well, or is it a broad range of different types of targets that they're used for?
So the bill only affects the neonics, which are insecticides.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to make? Oh, go ahead, public. We have David here from the 45th. The public from the. I just want to say he's the president of the 45th 46th Block Association. I thought I'd give you a proper introduction.
Thanks, appreciate it. I just had a question. So we've all kind of seen that Governor Hochul can be susceptible to lobbying. What is the message that the lobbyists are conveying to her about like why she needs to veto this bill? And is there like, if we are going to, or people, the committee board, just the public is going to support this, what would our counter message be to counter what the lobbyists might be saying to her to influence her? Thanks.
Well, I mean, I think for the community board, I'm not sure if directly countering some of that message makes sense. I think for the community board, you know, and I'm not, again, this issue touches so many different things. I'm not sure what what may speak to the interests of the members of the board. But I would just speak to that and provide that strong support. In terms of what Governor Hochul may be hearing, we, I've seen this in talking points and messaging, and it's a lot of, the sky is going to fall, right? The price of corn and soybean is going to go up, or farmers are not going to be able to grow crops, and there will be food insecurity in New York. And it's bizarre, right? Because just over the border, they're growing crops, they're growing corn and soybean without neonic treatments, right? And they've been doing it in Europe for 10 years. So without any noticeable effect on crop production. So, that's the message that she's getting. I think the facts sort of speak for themselves. And again, we have this study from Cornell University of 1,100 peer-reviewed papers that show the farmers are not getting economic returns from the use of these treatments. And again, that's why the bill was so surgical, right? It really stands on the science. It really stands on the research. We have the facts and we have the data, but that's what folks are saying. I also think there's some obfuscation, frankly. We heard there was a testimony on the bill, and there were a number of people that testified about how important neonics were for tomatoes and beets, et cetera. And you almost wondered, like, well, did they read the bill? Because it's very surgical in its effect. Although I would hope the folks in the governor's office can sort of see through that one.
Marty has his hand up.
He just came off mute, so I don't know. But it doesn't look like he heard me.
He's on Nasonex.
Marty, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, I can, yeah, we can hear you.
Guys, stop eating so much corn.
Go ahead,
My own predilection is to sign a letter that supports or that cajoles governor to sign the bill. I have a question about how quick such a letter needs to go out. I have a that may pose problems for us, or we have to figure our way around that, because I suspect it needs to go out soon. I have a question about whether or not you already have a letter written that we could adopt for our purposes. Those were my two major questions.
So I'm happy to share our materials with the board, and I guess I can share those with Janine. A couple of things there. Yes, sooner is always better, but I think there may be a longer time frame on this. I mean, we're not exactly sure when the governor would call the bill. It's maybe likely it would be after Labor Day, but we don't know. So there is potentially a little bit of time, but I would say don't waste it, because certainly she could call it tomorrow. And in terms of just, a form letter, we would really encourage folks to write their own letters. I don't think it has to be long. It could be even just a few paragraphs. I think the purpose of the letter is just, to be counted. So I wouldn't worry about it being, Shakespeare. But individualized letters are usually better than form letters. So again, if the community board would like to write a letter, we're happy to give you all the fodder to put into that. But probably best if it comes in your own words.
Did Shakespeare have insecticides?
I'd have to look. I never took the Shakespeare. I was an English major, but I didn't take the Shakespeare class.
Thank you, Dan. I just wanted to reinforce what Dan just said. All the language that we need for letters should be in the Senate bill. All we have to do is go to the page of the Senate bill, and anything we want to say is going to be in the bill.
Yeah.
So that's all you need.
If we do a motion for a letter, we can turn this around very quickly.
Yeah, it's a short.
This is not a, yeah.
Yes, it's like.
We've done much lengthier and more complicated. I don't want to put, words in anyone's mouth.
Yeah.
But if anyone wants to make a motion for a letter, I think we're at that point.
Right.
Thank you. Second. Great, excellent. Can we take a vote on a letter? And we'll leave the points, just to make sure we're on the same page. The letter will be in support of Senator Holman Siegel, and also, by the way, Roy, thank you so much from Deborah Glick's office for coming. We will also, if we write a letter, we're going to CC her on it as well. And the points that Dan made, obviously, the factual points, but how we, as the environmental committee, would like to support this bill, and we urge the governor to, for many, many reasons, to sign this bill. And I actually also think, the governor herself has talked about the environment many, many times, and I think we should include her words in our letter to remind her that she says she is, at the forefront of environmental change. So if she is, then hopefully she can maybe sign the bill. If that's okay, I don't want to overstep what everyone else is thinking.
No, I think everyone understood.
Okay, great. Can we take a vote then? Oh, Sally, you.
No, I'm just telling you, like, I can help you with this stuff.
Okay, great, perfect. Let's take a vote. Janine, we'll take a vote here in the room, and also we have Marty on Zoom. All great. Opposed? Present not eligible? Abstain. I think everyone voted yes, Janine?
Okay, thank you. Marty, what's your vote?
I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you.
Janine, Marty's writing a letter and it's due tomorrow.
Okay.
But no, we got it. Thank you so much. Dan, we will definitely, thank you for all the details. We'll add all the supporting information in our letter. Roy, thank you for coming. Natalie, thank you for the office heads up on this. But I think you'll like our letter, and we will definitely put it in front of the governor.
Thank you all for the time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Nice meeting everyone. Bye.
Thanks for the lesson.
Thank you.
We had some facts, we had some facts.
Yeah. There was
Data.
data.
Wall.
There was a graph. Brad, there was a graph.
I don't know.
Okay, our third, excuse me, I was just like, our third from Parks, and I'm guessing it's Paul, right, Paul?
Yes.
Just an update on Mathews Palmer, and actually, like I said before, David is here from the Block Association that covers that part, so it's gonna be very helpful as well. So Paul, if you can give us an update, there's been some, I guess, I don't want to say trouble, I guess troubling news, I guess, about the park, and but if you give us an update, then you can answer the question.
I'm not sure what the troubling news is. Well, I will tell you that I know that everybody's concerned about the construction work moving ahead. So yes, there was signs of work is being done. They've and one of the most obvious things that we know is that they put in a new an additional construction fence, and perhaps that's what you're alluding to, that there have been reports of I guess people getting electric shocks from the fence. What I will tell you is Department of Buildings has investigated this location, as have our own parks electricians, and we don't find signs of stray electricity or we don't find any problem there. So we're going to continue to monitor that condition, but so far we have not found anything, and neither has DOB. Is that what you were alluding to when you said the troubling information? And I'm not hearing you.
You can't hear me at all?
No, okay, better. Yes.
So just in overview, a lot of people who have been here for a while know that Mathews Palmer is a playground and health kitchen, and it has a mural. So it faces, or it abuts, right up to a building that was crumbling, And this building did not have the means or the money supposedly to fix it. So a great portion of this part has been closed off. The children, and it's the, it's the courts section, not the playground, but the courts section. And it's been, years, we're talking a long time. So
Yes.
just, and we've been on this for very years. And just recently, I guess, the owners of that building said they sold a co-op part of it, so they would have the means to then address the crumbling facade. And finally, there's scaffolding. Well, the problem was there was scaffolding there the whole time it was cut off, but now it looks like there is work being done. And that's why we asked for an update on it, just to see where we're at in the timeline now, since looks like it will be done. But then there was a report, and I guess Paul told us, not necessarily, I don't know, true or whatever, that there were some children there and by the fence, and they said they were getting electrical shocks. So he said, as you just updated us, Paul. But anyway, I'm sorry, I should have explained that before we went into Paul's explanation. But if you could give us maybe a timeline or some information, or like, what do you see going on and when that park will be fully opened?
I will try to keep you informed. I will tell you that we did give the company, I guess the contractor, an extension on their permit to get the work done, and that goes through like the middle of December. So, which I'm sure is longer than everybody wants, but that's what we have allowed them, the time we've allowed them to get this work done. So, that's my answer. And I've lost you again.
We're saying by the end of the year, maybe we'll have our park.
I am cautiously optimistic.
Well, I should go to the committee first.
And I have a problem hearing you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not a clear transmission at this point.
I was asking if the committee had any questions. I know this has been a back and forth for many years. Anyone? Oh, yeah, this has been going on for a very long time.
It was delayed because of the nerve.
Yeah, that
was gone, now things are getting better.
then. All right, anyone else? So Paul, we're thinking, can you hear me, Paul? We're thinking the end of December?
Well, that's the time on the extended permit that they have. So hopefully they'll be able to complete what they need to do within that time. I don't want to make a promise on behalf of the contractor, but we've given them until December with this first extension. So hopefully so.
How is that?
Leslie, I'm sorry, the sound keeps coming in and out. It sounds a bit muffled. Can you just check that the speaker and the volume are both on the owl again?
Sure. Yes, they are. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Much better.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I was just saying, I was asking Paul if the relationship with the owner and the work is going smoothly. I know that has been a problem in the past.
Okay, that I can't respond to, but I will talk to our legal and we'll see what if I can get a better response for you.
Okay.
So if the building has until the end of December to complete their work, what work then remains for parks to do to make the basketball courts usable?
Well, the only real reason why nobody can play is because the fencing is in the way, and we have removed the hoops. Now, because it would be a hazard, we don't want to invite people to play, right up against the fence. So, however, there is some damage on the courts, and contractor's supposed to make repairs to that. But I think those are it's relatively minor damage. It's some cracks and some scratches that I think can be that are relatively simple to repair. So, you know, people can play basketball when we put the hoops back up. I mean, the backboards are still there. Is anybody speaking? Because I don't hear anything on your end.
So, am I audible at this point? Folks hear me? This is Dave Stewart.
A little, it still goes in and out, but go ahead.
Okay, so I'll try to speak louder, but so I think there's a couple of issues, and I think we're starting over some things here. So the scaffolding has been up since 2019. In almost that entire time, the Block Association, HK 4546, has been calling out safety issues, dozens and dozens and dozens of safety issues. One of the safety issues was that in addition to the scaffolding, there was also fencing around the scaffolding that was there to try to keep people away from the scaffolding. That fencing was removed after a year and a half of the Block Association sending email after email after email, the Parks Department to DOB saying that children were getting injured on the fencing because there were sharp wires, it was rusty, kids were climbing over, there was boards behind the fencing, all kinds of safety issues. I can go on and on about this. So one of the key things that we fought against was having this flimsy fencing, because it's just like a fence that you see like around the yard, right? It's just the metal fencing. I was there the other day. This fencing is really flimsy. Children's toys are going to go over the fencing because it's only about 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall, whatever. Toys will go over. Kids will climb over it to get to there, because that's exactly what happened when these children were shocked with electricity. And by the way, I did an interview with West 42nd Street. Other people have responded saying that they were also shocked within the last 2 weeks. This fencing has only been up within the last 2 weeks. So I was there. So number one, the fencing that is in place is not safe. It needs to be some kind of different fencing so that the kids' toys do not go over that, or we're somehow addressing the fact that 5-year-olds are playing in the park and they will go to get their ball when it goes over, and it's not safe. A kid is going to climb over that. It's really flimsy. They're definitely going to fall down. Somebody's going to get hurt. I was there when the electrician did the study, did the testing. They did not find any stray current. However, I think 5 or 6 people now have received electrical shocks. So we are not really sure that we have gotten to the bottom of what's happening. So I think there's that. So what I would really love to hear from Parks Department is, what are we going to do to ensure that the park is safe right now and for the remainder of the construction? Then I think a separate issue is, what is Parks Department going to do to really put pressure on this co-op to finish the work? The co-op originally, and do you want me to stop for a moment?
Let him respond.
Okay.
And then, yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so the question of putting pressure on the co-op, I'm very happy to pass that question along. That's actually a very good question as to what action the agency is taking to press that. But on the issue of the fencing, you know, I'm sorry that you're not happy with the way this has gone, but the electricians checked it out. They didn't find the stray electricity. That's what they found. On the issue of the fencing itself, what I will say is that you know, there's no happy solution to the need for fencing. We had another situation where the fencing was not there. There was just a mesh netting, and the netting always got breached. So there clearly is need for something that is more substantial than the netting at the bottom of the sidewalk shed, and that is the fencing that's in place. That is basically standard. We call it construction fence. You see it at many construction sites, and it's just chain link mesh that's portable. Most construction sites rent it from another company to put in place for the jobs they have to do. So it is in many ways just the standard construction material. I think that what's problematic for all of us in this case is that this is a very emotional project. It has definitely, I agree with you, taken much longer than anybody would have imagined, and it's gotten much more complicated than people would have imagined. So, you know, but that is the situation that we're actually confronted with. And so we can do our best to get more information about the action of the co-op and the contractor and the time frame. But some of the things that you're asking me to provide you information for, I don't have an answer, and it may not actually be a more immediate answer for you that is satisfactory.
Paul, I'm sorry, this is Leslie, I'm gonna jump in again. You know, that we're a little disappointed that you don't have the answer to that, since this is the only thing that you guys came to give us an update on. Number one, and number two, I understand about the construction fencing and its usual construction fencing. I get that, but it's in a park this time. It's not in a construction zone. So kids are running around that area. So I think it's a little unusual. Is there maybe an alternative where we put like a wooden, like they do for sheds sometimes under scaffolding, or I can't imagine that costs a lot of money for construction. They throw up, it's in, you know, a morning, they can throw up a few wood planks, so at least that area is cordoned off to the kids, and if the ball or toy will just bounce right off that, you know, that wood board or wood panel and come back.
Well, let me just say that, yeah, there have been some places where plywood has been used to encase some of the construction areas. That's another option that's actually used, and I will share that community request, as far as I can with the powers that be. But I also want to let you know that this very same kind of construction fence was in fact used at Chelsea Park. So when they were working on the basketball courts, this is the same kind of construction fence that was in place at that location.
No, I understand, but evidently I think there's been this is a long-standing problem, right?
I get it. No, we'll ask about, we will ask about having it encased, since it's kind of inconclusive.
Yeah, but it's better, I mean, listen, I would think it's better being safe than sorry. I mean, how much can it be to put some plywood up?
Well, here's the problem.
You would know this, Brad, I was just gonna ask you.
The problem is the park stopped paying for things. The co-op.
The co-op, right.
The co-op always had a money problem, and that's what took so long to get this correction. So the contractor's gonna say, no, plywood's the highest it's ever been right now.
Yeah.
That could be $6-7 grand.
Yeah.
Right? And then they gotta put it up structurally, it doesn't fall over. It's a lot more than you think. But what we should be asking is, let them keep their fence. Parks needs to maybe help here, use their guys, and put up a wooden fence in front of it. And that's really what we're asking, because we're not gonna get anything out of the co-op. It's not gonna happen.
Did you hear, Paul, could you hear Brad? Oh. All sounds us.
It looks like he fell off.
I would have fallen. I also, if I didn't have any information.
I mean, it's literally the one part we asked for.
Leslie, I also think, listen, we should talk to our local council member, he's helped before.
Yeah.
Eric. So Eric, talk to the parks, we need a wooden fence template for that.
I think that's a good
They
idea.
have the material, they have the means. The co-op's not gonna do it.
Yep.
We got the best say, well, people are gonna let you do it or not, let's just put this other thing in front, because that was still December.
Can I maybe just add one more?
Please.
So I guess the questions for me would be, why is this new fence even there? The scaffolding or the sidewalk shed with the netting is there to prevent, when the workers are working, to prevent anything that is falling from coming out and injuring people. This additional fence is about 8 feet beyond the sidewalk shed. I don't understand the purpose of it. So I don't, if there's a cost to it, why the cost, what is the purpose? And I'm gonna get really pissed because we absolutely have no give and take when it comes to 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 9-year-olds playing in a park and being placed at risk. I don't care whose fence it is. Parks Department has to step up. They have to go there with DOB and they have to look at that fence. If anybody wants to come with me, I was there. I just grabbed the fence and shook it like this. The top of this fence moves 3 feet, right, back and forth. Any kids that goes over it is going to go over it head first onto the sidewalk. So what's Parks' answer going to be there? So number one, why is the fence there? Who gives a damn about the cost? I don't care if the condo, I mean, all due respect, I don't care if the co-op pays for it. They absolutely should. It should be safe for children, number one. Number two, he says we have given them until December 31st. This has been a 3.5-year ordeal. Why are we giving him to December 31st, first of all? And if we are, how are we ensuring that they're going to complete the work? Because plastering work cannot be done once the temperature goes below, I think it's like 40 degrees. I don't know the exact temperature, but it has to be warm enough for the plaster to stick. Once it gets cold, you can't do any work. So my guess is after November, they're not going to be able to do any work anyway. So my brain is exploding about what is going on with parks and how these decisions are being made.
And so I'd like Paul, I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say Paul.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you. Yes. I'm sorry that my every once in a while our system shuts down and has to reboot. I'm very sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I'm back. Thank you.
Did you hear what Brad said earlier? Or we knocked off before then.
I heard, I did hear the last bit about the work continuing as the weather changes. I did not hear what came just before that.
Okay, well, why don't we go to Sally, because she's gonna come in on David, then I'll just.
Well, I don't reiterate what Brad said, because Brad is absolutely right. I mean, the situation is drastic here. The condo can't pay for it. It's a Parks Department park, so parks should be supervising the type of scaffolding that's going up in a public park to protect the park goers and the children. And if the building can't do it, it's the responsibility of the Parks Department to do it, because they're in your public area. To make the analogy that this is the fencing that's used at Chelsea Park around the basketball court where teenagers and adults are playing has nothing to do with a little park where 5-year-olds are playing. I don't know why the same fencing would be appropriate necessarily. I haven't seen what's described, but what I'm picturing, there's no analogy there. And I don't see how the Parks Department cannot take full responsibility to make sure that the contractor that's been retained by a private group of people is not compliant with what needs to be done to protect the people going to the park. Is that correct?
So Paul, I think you get our drift, right?
Yes. I mean, my point before was that the fencing that's in place is standard construction fencing. The issue, I think the issue with the safety as relates to any kind of electrical, shocks people are getting or saying that they're getting, I think that that's an anomaly, and we will deal with the anomaly. I think one of the solutions, as people have suggested, is getting it covered or some other kind of alternative, and I will communicate that might be, that's the community's desire, and that it might be necessary in this case. I also heard the request that the agency have more of a leadership role in making sure that this work get completed. I understand.
I'm gonna ask the committee now, do you think this warrants a letter, or should we just do a email to Parks?
Can I provide one more fact?
Please.
So if the co-op completes work by December 31st, which is based on past history, which is all we have to go on, that's a big if. The basketball court, it may be that it only needs minor repairs until the co-op finishes the work and removes the scaffolding. Steve Simon has told me they have to take a look at it to see what is actually needed. So again, we are not getting Mathews Palmer back in December, at the end of December, because it is probably likely that no work is going to be done on the basketball court in the middle of winter. And even if it is done, I haven't seen work go like that. So based on past experience, it's probably the spring or summer when we get Mathews Palmer back. If there isn't another issue, if the co-op finishes the work. So what the community would love, and just to really concisely, we want the park 100% safe to the community's standards for the children. That means the scaffolding, the fencing, the electric shock issues. There's some of those big plaques are falling off or being taken off. Those things weigh a lot. So I would think that Paul, you would know about all these safety issues, but I'm happy to tell you and go over these with you. All those things have to be addressed and have to be addressed immediately. And we need to know exactly what happens if this co-op does not complete the work by December 31st. Like, what is the plan from Parks Department? We've been doing this for 3.5 years. Parks Department should have a plan. If they don't, I'm happy to sit down with you and make one for you. But let's do the work. And what I would really love to start hearing from Parks is a lot less of the committee we might be able to do this, might be able to do this. Let's not hear can't and might, let's hear will. That's really what I hear. We will ensure this, we will ensure that, we will ensure that. That would satisfy the community. So sorry to take so much time, but I appreciate it.
No, you patiently waited, by the way, through the beginning of our meeting and our other agenda items. So I'm gonna throw it out to the committee. If you think this warrants a letter, if you think this is just an email to Parks leadership, notating our request, what do you guys, Marty, what do you suggest? Or if someone wants to make a motion, that's fine too, or we can handle it in an email. It's Marty. What's that? Marty? I don't know if you can hear that. Go ahead.
On the differences between if there are any repercussions if we do an email versus a letter, like, because we want to take this, like you were saying, that these are children, these are unsafe conditions, is not something that should continue. And so what are the differences between saying?
So email is really, we don't necessarily have to vote on it. We could just do, kind of an administrative email. We send to Steve Simon, who is the chief of staff here in Manhattan Parks, and tell them, we could do listen, what I envision, if we do a letter and it goes to a vote and it'll be fine, we will also send an email. I will send an email to Steve tomorrow regardless.
I say do both. Let's just do
I think that's the most effective. I'm just wondering what's the most effective. A letter is going to take time. It's going to take, it's a process. What we want is to get Steve's and Paul's assurance that they're on top of it. And we've written about this before. So why not an email follow-up that says, we're watching this, we need information. When is it going to be completed? Not when the timeline has been extended to, but when is it actually going to be completed?
Oh my gosh, Steve, are you here? Can you put Steve over? I wish he came on earlier. Janine, can you move Steve over?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead, Roberta.
Steve Simon's here.
Yeah.
I guess the question that I would have is, can Parks compel this work to be completed on time? And if not, is there something that Parks can do within its powers here? Are we asking, is the request something that parks can do, is my question.
We'll let, Steve is here. I mean, to make it safe, they can.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I would think that at the very least, they could.
They have no money at all.
Parks?
Yeah.
Leslie, Paul shouldn't be excluded from this conversation. He should stay.
No, he's staying, he's here. He's
Oh,
online.
he was switched out. He's switched back.
Can I speak?
Go ahead. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Steve.
Please.
I'm sorry, I'm joining late. I was at another, I was at a community board 8 meeting, via Zoom, of course. But, so I've missed, most of this discussion, but I did catch, one of Brad's points, and I want to make something clear, that the permit extension that we provided, to the contractor, goes until December the 13th. And part of the conditions of that extension are that all of the damages to the basketball court have to be completed prior to that date. So we're not anticipating that it's going to carry on for months beyond that point. And the recourse we have is to resume the legal action in court and to go after them for what's known as liquidated damages. So we have that as a weapon in our pockets, which we would hope not to use, because we would hope that the contractor is going to fulfill his obligations.
Thank you, Steve. That's helpful. Because we know this owner has not been helpful. You know, it hasn't been an easy road up to this point. But the one more pressing matter is what we were discussing. You probably didn't hear it. Is that I think there is concern that the area is not necessarily safe. The fencing is not secure. It's flimsy. Kids' balls and toys are going there. You know, this is a park that is being shared now with a playground for young children. Is there any way we can cordon off that area either with plywood or something, so the kids aren't running into this fencing, possibly going over the fencing along with their toys? What can we do as far as just for parks to put that area aside and cordon it off, and it won't be a problem safety wise?
Well, we'll send somebody there tomorrow from our trades staff to see what any additional work is needed there. So we'll look into it tomorrow.
Can we meet you there?
I'm sorry?
Can we meet you there? Or not all of us, but can I or maybe David from the Block Association, can we meet you there?
Well, I first need to find out when somebody can get there.
Okay. No, that's helpful. If someone from that department in parks can go and see what can be done. David, do you think that would be we can get that? Just saying tomorrow.
Yeah, I might be going on vacation tomorrow.
If it's during the day, I'll make sure I'll be there.
I'll certainly try to go.
Fine. So in light of Steve here, do you think we need a letter, or can we just follow up with Steve on an email? Or, I mean, listen, like I said.
I feel like we should still do a letter. And the letter should not just go to Parks, but it should also go to Eric and maybe the Borough President's office.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, any second, okay, all in favor, I don't know if you guys can hear me, I'm sorry, well, I guess it's just Marty. If you, not just Marty. I'm sorry, it's Marty. That all in favor of a letter that is just to kind of reiterate our requests, and it's the same thing, Steve, that we just asked you, but we'll put it in a letter and we'll just see some people that hopefully can move it along or apply some pressure on that. That would be great. All in favor? Brad, no, all opposed, yes, okay, all opposed? Here in the thing, abstention, present not eligible. Okay.
I'd like to abstain. I think a letter is overkill.
Okay.
I think
Noted.
Parks has heard it, and what we need to do is follow up, more important than a letter. But you voted in favor, and I won't stand in the way of that.
Noted. Janine, so did you hear that? Marty is abstaining and, the rest of us in the room voted yes for the letter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Paul, thank you so much for coming. And Steve, we really appreciate you coming, and, I will follow up with you on email, tomorrow morning.
All right, very good.
All right, thank you, Parks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Our last agenda item. Oh, what a friendly face, Brian Weber, public member, Community Board 4. Brian, are you presenting? Are you gonna announce? It's not really a presentation, it's an announcement.
It looks like it's just me at this point. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Waterfront, Parks, and Environment. It's been a pleasure sitting in on your meeting. As Leslie mentioned, I'm a public member on the CHKLU Land Use Committee, and I'm also the president of the Midtown South Precinct Community Council. I'm here to hopefully end this meeting on a positive note. As part of an ongoing collaboration with the Office of the Special Narcotics Prosecutor of New York City and the Midtown South Precinct to address public safety concerns within the Midtown South Precinct, Bridget Brenna, the Special Narcotics Prosecutor for the City of New York, is sponsoring a PAL Summer Play Program in McCaffrey Playground, which is on 43rd Street between 8th and 9th Avenue. I'm sure everyone on this committee is familiar with it. The program runs from July 10th, this past Monday, through August 17th for about 6 weeks, Monday through Thursday, 11 to 4 p.m., and is open to children ages 8 through 17. All children in this community are welcome. They don't have to be in Midtown South Precinct. You can cross the street from the other side of 9th and join. The PAL Playground program, that's Police Athletic League, is run by civilians that work in collaboration with the NYPD citywide to host such programs. I don't know if anyone from Parks wants to comment on it, but this is, like I said, open to everyone in the community. And I know CB4 has circulated the flyer, and a lot of the local block associations have done so as well. And we hope that this is well attended by children and families, and can lead to further programming in parks throughout the community. And that's about it.
Brian, by the way, this is great news. This is a drop off, like you can drop off your kid. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is a drop off program?
Yes. You don't have to register, but you can come and I don't know how the check-in procedure is. I wish someone from PAL was here to explain that, but my understanding is that it is a drop off.
All right. I think we're also going to forward this to the ACES committee, because this is a huge, this is a really great program, especially for parents who, have nowhere to bring their kids, or they can't afford camp or something. And this is wonderful. Speaking as a parent, to drop off your kid at a park for a few hours.
Right. And I might be getting ahead of myself. I don't know the exact wording around the drop off. But I do know that they had a kickoff event that I don't see Natalie here. She was there the other morning in the park, and a lot of children from the Duncan Center, which I think is another facility in Hell's Kitchen, had come, and they were without their parents. So I believe there is supervision for all there.
All right, great. And I'm sure you guys have gone to all the apartment complexes and Because I saw it online all over, but I'm glad you came and just said that's going on, because I think it's a really big coup for our neighborhood, just to have this program.
Yeah,
I know it's-
and if anything, the committee can think of to circulate this to others in the community. It's just, like I said, it's open to all. And, you know, hearing about conditions at Matthew Palmer, you know, please come on over. The children don't have to participate in the activities there, but they certainly are welcome to.
Great, Brad.
Is it being reached out to the local refugees that are coming in? Is there?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you heard that.
So in the process of talking to PAL, I informed them of specifically its proximity to the Row Hotel, which is a very large family shelter. And I inquired if they could have bilingual supervisors, and they agreed to do so. And I believe that in my conversation with SNP yesterday was that they had created a Spanish language flyer to circulate to the shelters as well. And I'm going to speak to our council member's office about extending the invite to the other family shelters within the neighborhood.
I do have one question, Brian, and I don't think I know this. Will there be police, I know it's a PAL program, are police officers involved? The only reason why I ask is because one of our priorities, our budget priorities, some of the language was that police officers or members of the precinct actually get involved in the community more and do more outreach themselves with these type of programs. So I don't know if.
Yeah, so part of on my end, getting this program here in the park was to have a greater presence of not only families and children, but have more eyes on 43rd Street, which has been going through a fair share of problems. Working with the Police Athletic League are the youth auxiliary officers from the precinct. So they're generally in the park with the children as well. The youth auxiliary officers also do a Wednesday evening program in the park throughout the summer. And it's been an ongoing project of Midtown South, started under the previous commanding officer, Robert O'Hare, to sort of reclaim the park for families and residents and make it more of a neighborhood amenity. You know, I know Parks has collaborated with the precinct in getting additional lighting and securing the park after dark by locking the gates. And I know that the NCOs frequent that location throughout the duration of their tour. So that is a long answer to yes, there will be increased presence to accompany this program. And I'll also mention that will be the site of the Midtown South Precinct's National Night Out Against Crime on August 1st. I know Midtown North will be having a similar event within our community district, as will the 10th.
Nice plug. The Midtown North one is PS 111. Anyone has a comment or a question? Great. Brian, thank you. And thank you for waiting through our meeting for that.
My pleasure. Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Brian. And with that, I don't think we don't need a lettering. I think it was just an update, right? Okay. And with that, there's old and new business. I just have 2 items, unless anyone, you know, just really updates. If I can find them. Oh, we had a meeting Parks had a meeting at Penn South for the new Penn South playground design. It was the first public meeting, and it was held at in a meeting room at Penn South. Though it's a Penn South playground and on the grounds of Penn South, it's a public park. It's a New York City park. So this is the park that we're talking about. This is the one, the famous dog run park that we pontificated on for so many months. But it's going to be all accessible park. So it's going to be a special design for playground use, for whatever use. It's going to be totally redeveloped. could keep the basketball courts, it might not, but anyway, we had a really productive meeting at Penn South. A lot of the Penn South residents were there. People that weren't Penn South residents came, but Parks will come here and talk about it more, the design, and we'll probably have input in that as well. So that was good. The second, near and dear to my heart, as Katie Savage knows, and Katie's too, we got compost bins, if anyone has seen, all over our district. And we have been writing about this, we have been begging, we have behind the scenes been begging, meetings, emails, and all of a sudden, poof, they're here without even letting us know, which is a little odd. But we're like, wait, are those compost? You would think they would want to pat themselves on the back and say, hey, guys, we're getting you, you know, compost bins. Not only do we have compost bins, if any of you guys noticed, there are a lot of them, like they're pretty, if you live somewhere, you'll probably spit and hit a compost bin, hopefully. So, anyway, that's not really an argument.
Sitting outside on the street next to, you know, the restaurant seating areas now. It's having right.
Oh, they're on the street, I haven't seen one on the
Right
street.
on the street, right next to, you know, where you build the little things to sit on.
The sheds.
Right on the side of the shed, there's about 2 or 3.
Where's
I'm
that?
just hoping that,
Where is that?
no, the Freeman.
Oh, no, this
It's
Yeah.
close by.
Yeah, no, that's the business.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the orange.
So you've seen that, right, so there are on the sidewalks, there's orange waste paper, but like, not waste paper.
They're the big belly bins.
Build out bins, but you need a QR code. An app. An app, and yes,
show you.
exactly, and it shows you what is available near you, and the green check means it's, I don't wanna say empty, but it's not full, and you can put your compost in. And you can't open it unless you use the app and you're close by, which is great. I gotta say, it's, I mean, I don't know if what anyone else thinks, but I was impressed. Not only did they roll it out, but I thought it was really well done as far as, it's pretty comprehensive.
Except they didn't tell them.
Except they didn't tell, except they didn't tell them, which was, but anyway, Candace, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna talk about the compost as well, like I was telling Katie, I used it last week 5 times, and it's so simple and it's easy, and I wish there was actually a little bit more. Closer near the Penn South area, which I find a little weird that there's not another one in that area. I'm on 30th and I have, I think, 3 I use that are in this area. But closer towards the water, you're not getting any, which maybe we could talk to Parks to see if they can get.
You know what,
closer towards the
that's a
water.
really good point. In the interim, until next meeting, why don't we write a list of places where we think it would be useful. I don't know if they're gonna add more, but maybe if anyone
Yeah, I
has
think
any.
it's still rolling them out. I mean, and that's a question I think
Yeah.
actually fair, you know, because I think there's a plan to. Well,
I would say the biggest issue is in routing and concentration of residents. I can see it being less likely to have them on 11th Avenue. And I think they're more concentrated around schools because schools also have compost pickup. Our community district does not have curbside program. We did not make it into the cut before they switched to this borough-wide thing. So pretty much all the compost is being collected right now. It's just from those smart bins and any schools that we have. So it's not a ton of material. So they're gonna do whatever the best possible route would be.
Which is 7th and 10th, it looks like.
Well, and HRPT does, I know it's a different system, but they also.
Yeah, so that fills the gap if you're going, across the highway. But I don't know that there's as much of a need on 11th Avenue, but they seem to be placed on 8th, 9th, and 10th Avenues.
Yeah, I saw more on that as well.
Yeah, well, further down in Chelsea, like those areas of 11th Avenue are lived on, and more people are there, and there's not.
Yeah.
Like I said, on the other side of South, and it's on 9th and not on 10th. Further down another 5 or 6 blocks, so.
And to your point, the one that's like full is 8th and 25th.
Yeah.
So it's.
Is there one full already? I've never.
Well,
It gives you a brown.
So
That's good.
That's
People are
like
using
the
it.
one in Chelsea that's full right
So
now.
those are,
So there might be a need for another one.
Those are my 2 updates. I took a picture with a compost bin and my husband, I literally, he's like, you seriously have issues, but anyway. Go ahead, Brad.
Piece of new business, I said something to Marty. A lot of cities now with the empty office buildings are approving urban gardens. And you know, we had our own committee about the zoning for these things and the change. But maybe it's something for our board to consider to write a letter to say, you know, this use. We could really use that use here in the city. And, you know, because the HVAC's there, the water's there, there's a lot of factors.
Where is the garden in the building?
They take an office space like this, they put a vertical garden. So instead of empty office spaces, that someone's being converted to residential.
Indoor.
Yeah, indoor. And a lot of, I sent Marty the article, and he'll pass it on. And some cities are doing this and they've got systems now that they can roll out pretty quickly. Since we're the environmental group, we've been talking about for years to put it on the west side. You know, on the water there should be vertical gardening. Some of the presentations from some of the students had those ideas way back. I just think we should keep trying to advocate for that.
Yeah, there was one on the Upper West Side, not our district. There was one in the Upper West. They're wonderful, yeah. And it was.
And I just think it should be another use that should be approved as part of this, you know, exiting of office space.
Yeah.
Right, I think you should go to the Javits Center if you haven't seen it. Yeah.
I know, you missed our big tour.
That was amazing.
I know.
Really amazing.
Does anyone else have, Marty, you got any new business, old business? No? Not here, isn't it? Does anyone else have anything else, or is there a motion to adjourn? Great, second, great. Guys, by the way, I think we are the only committee that made quorum. I think. Janine, is that true, or is that a false?
No, we've actually had a forum for a couple of the other committees too.
Oh.
But you guys are the largest committee, so very good.
Yeah, committee. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you for coming on the tour. And those who can't, we can get you a tour if you want to. They were very great. But I think we are adjourned. And oh, Marty, do you want to we can talk later, but do you want to do the Con Ed letter and I'll do the other ones?
Sure.
Okay, we'll talk.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Happy August.
Janine, what do you want me to do with the ID you gave me?
If it's the same guard that you saw when you went in, you could drop it off with him. But if not, just hold it, and then also if you can, drop it off at the office.
Okay, I mean, so drop it off downstairs or leave it up here?
No, please drop it off downstairs.
Oh, I'll just leave it on here. Okay. I'll leave it. I have one for Josephine. She left. I didn't give it to her. And the one I used was for JD.
Oh, so you had different cards. If anything, actually no, you can leave them on Jesse's desk.
Okay, because I don't have one. I just use the QR code from my phone. I don't have a card. I don't know. I mean, I don't need one. I can just use the QR code, right?
Yeah, so Jesse is gonna put in a request for all the leadership roles, all the exec members basically, and you guys should be getting one soon.
Okay, I will leave these on, the two of them on Jesse's desk.
Okay, thank you.
Janine, thank you for a great meeting. Thank you. It went off really smoothly.